The silence in that house had never been so loud. Sophia stared at the divorce papers that had arrived that morning. The lawyer had asked them to read them carefully and would get in touch in the coming days to schedule the signing. It was only a few pages. Nothing dramatic. Simply printed words trying to organize the end of something that had once been a beginning. She placed the papers on the kitchen table, next to the still warm cup of tea. A light breeze blew through the slightly open window, making the curtains dance softly. Sophia observed her own reflection in the glass, the exhausted brown eyes, marked by dark circles that no concealer could disguise, the dark brown hair tied up carelessly, the absence of certainties. What were they doing? The previous night they had sat down with Olivia, their 6-year-old daughter. They tried to explain. Daniel held the little girl's hand, his nervous fingers caressing hers as he searched for words that wouldn't hurt so much. Sophia gently adjusted a strand of her daughter's blonde hair, as if that gesture could cushion the impact. They talked about changes, about different houses, about how everything would be fine. Forced smiles, vague promises. "Daddy will live somewhere else, but we will continue to see you every day," Daniel said, with a lump in his throat. "It's like a new adventure," Sophia added, hating how the words sounded false to her own ears. The girl just looked at them, with a furrowed brow, as if listening to a language she hadn't yet learned to decipher. Olivia's blue eyes, inherited from her father, shifted from one to the other, searching for answers that neither of them really had. They didn't really know what they were saying either. The truth is that they still lived under the same roof. They still shared breakfast. He made the toast the way she liked, without even realizing that he maintained this habit. She still left his dress shirt ironed and hanging on the bathroom door before important work meetings. They still shared evenings on the sofa in silence, the exhaustion from their obligations, the small spaces where love once lived. There was no betrayal, no explosive fights, just a collection of trivial misunderstandings that had turned into walls too high. Daniel was an accountant at a medium-sized company where he had worked for over 10 years. He earned enough, but never enough for the dreams they had nurtured when they met. Sophia taught music at a private school and also had some private piano students. Both bore the weight of bills, the mortgage, the unfulfilled expectations. "Maybe it's just a phase," he said that very night, while arranging the guest room where he had been sleeping for almost 2 months. His voice low, as if he didn't want to scare the thought. His blue eyes, always so determined, now revealed doubt. "We're going through a rough patch. Who doesn't? But I still love you, Sophia. Shouldn't we try one more time?" Sophia felt her heart tighten. Her hands gripped the doorframe firmly, as if she needed support to not give in. She wanted to say yes, that she still loved him too, that her memories wouldn't fit in the house's wardrobes, but spilled over everywhere. The way he tossed his coat on the sofa and always apologized afterward. The scent of his cologne lingering on the pillow. The bad jokes that still made her smile, even when she didn't want to. But she thought she needed to be strong. That's what was expected of her. And with a voice firmer than her heart, she simply said, "We've already talked about this, Daniel." He nodded, but the sadness in his eyes showed he hoped for a different answer. They had been together since their last year of college. Sophia was 21, and Daniel 23 when they met at that graduation party. He was a friend of her brother's. It wasn't love at first sight. It was at the third, actually. After bumping into each other at 3 different events, they decided that the universe was giving them a sign. They always heard they looked so good together, that they matched. But was that enough for a lifetime? The wedding came 2 years later, and soon after Olivia's unplanned pregnancy. They always thought they weren't ready, that maybe they had rushed into it. Maybe the marriage had been a nice idea, but poorly executed. That's what they told themselves to justify the exhaustion. To name the distance that grew between them, silent like moss spreading after the rain. The next afternoon, while she was washing dishes and listening to the muffled sound of the TV coming from the living room, where Daniel and Olivia were watching a cartoon, she felt something touch her foot. A folded piece of paper, sliding under the kitchen door. The clumsy handwriting was unmistakable, with those reversed E's and the excessive use of hearts to fill spaces. She dried her hands on the towel hanging on the stove and crouched to pick it up. She unfolded it carefully, her heart racing for no apparent reason. It was written, "Mum, could you get me another mommy and daddy?" Those short words seemed to weigh a ton. It wasn't a simple question. It was a mirror, a reflection of what she and Daniel were unintentionally projecting. The daughter didn't understand that parents aren't like furniture that can be replaced. She was asking for someone to be whole because both of them were falling apart in front of her. Without thinking, she went to the living room and called the girl over to talk. Daniel asked if everything was all right, noticing his wife's tearful eyes, but she just nodded and took Olivia to the bedroom. She sat on the light pink carpet, in the same spot where they used to build castles with colourful blocks when Olivia was younger. She told her she would always have both of them, that nothing would change the love they had for her, that even in different houses, they would still be a family. The daughter tilted her head, her own eyes brimming with tears. The old worn-out teddy bear, Mr. Whiskers, clutched to her chest. "But Mum, who will play tag with me when Daddy isn't here? You always say you're tired after classes." She tried to smile. She remembered how many times she had refused to play with her daughter, using fatigue as an excuse. But then came the next question. "Who will sing to me when I'm with Daddy? He sings really badly. Remember when he tried to sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and you said it sounded like a frog with a sore throat?" She laughed, a sad laugh laden with guilt and tenderness. She remembered that night, years ago, when the three of them were lying in the big bed, and Daniel sang out of tune to baby Olivia, who laughed as if it were the best song in the world. "And who will kill the cockroach when Dad isn't here? I know you're scared. He always kills them quickly, and then makes a hero face like Spider-Man." The girl continued listing. "Who will check if I closed my backpack properly? Dad always looks twice. Who knows that I like to sleep with 2 pillows, one for my head and one to hug? Who will remind me to take a jacket when it's sunny but feels cold? Dad always says I'm as distracted as you." Each sentence was a sharp knife, not because it came with aggression, but because it carried the disarmed truth of a child. "And who will make the special tea when I'm sick? Only you know how. And who will help me with my math homework? You get confused with numbers and Dad can explain everything easily." Sophia heard it all. And then she remembered. She remembered the nights he made hot chocolate the right way, with cinnamon only in hers. The times he took the car just to buy the orange juice she liked, even after an exhausting day at work. She remembered how he closed the windows before the rain started, even when she hadn't noticed it was going to rain. How he arranged her pillows on the bed without saying anything. The habit of leaving her towel closer so she wouldn't feel cold after a shower. Small things that time covered with the dust of routine. She remembered him in childbirth classes, more nervous than she was, memorizing breathing techniques. Him crying, hidden, when Olivia had a high fever for the first time. Him waking up earlier to prepare breakfast, even on days he didn't have to go to work early just so she could sleep a little longer. She started to cry. Not the restrained cry, the elegant goodbye, but the ugly cry, wet, full of sobs and regrets. Olivia hugged her mother, her little arms barely managing to wrap around Sophia's shoulders. "Don't cry, Mummy. I can ask Daddy to stay here. He doesn't have to leave." There was still love, hidden among dishes, sheets, silent routines. Love that never shouted but never left. Love that stayed quiet so as not to disturb but still inhabited the simplest gestures. That night, while Olivia slept, Daniel entered the room to get a jacket. He found her sitting on the bed, holding their daughter's note. She handed it to him without saying a word. He read it slowly, the lamp's light casting shadows on his tired face. Then he sat beside her, the mattress sinking slightly under his weight. "I think we both forgot a lot along the way," she finally said, her voice hoarse from tears. "Like remembering to say thank you," he replied, looking at his own hands. For all the times you made my coffee the way I like it. For all the times you organised my documents for the tax return. For listening to me complain about work every day. Or like remembering to say that I still admire you, she added, finally finding the courage to look into his eyes. For being so patient with Olivia. For always filling up my car with gas before it runs out. For bringing me tea when I'm sick. They said nothing for a while. They just stayed there. A new silence, full of meaning. Daniel took her hand. Their fingers fit perfectly, as always. It was a familiar feeling, but one they hadn't experienced in a long time. Who are we without the small gestures? He asked softly. Maybe we confused love with big moments when, in fact, it's about waking up every day and choosing to make each other's coffee. We stopped choosing each other, Sophia murmured, every day in every small decision. There were no promises, no definitive decisions, but that night they slept in the same bed. They just slept, holding hands, as they hadn't done in months. Olivia appeared in the room in the middle of the night, as she used to in happier times. She squeezed herself between the two and fell asleep on top of the note, which Sophia had placed on the bedside table, crumpling the paper between her small ribs, and the two of them in silence understood. Love doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be remembered, and it needs to be nurtured, every day. They had left love starving, waiting for attention. They had forgotten that love cannot survive alone. It's like a plant that withers without water. It doesn't die all at once, but gradually loses its vigour, colour, and life. In the weeks that followed, they didn't discuss the divorce papers. They talked about other things, fears, frustrations, unmet expectations. Daniel confessed that he felt like a failure for not being able to buy the bigger house they had dreamed of. Sophia admitted that she sometimes felt she had given up too soon on her career as a pianist to become a teacher. They started having candlelit dinners after Olivia went to sleep. Not elaborate dinners, but simple meals where they could talk without the television on, without cell phones, without interruptions. Small moments stolen from the routine. Daniel returned to sleeping in the master bedroom. Sophia began waking him up with gentle kisses, as she did in the early years of their marriage. They took turns taking Olivia to school, using those moments for light-hearted conversations over breakfast. That night, they began again. Small, timid yet sincere. In time they learned to care for each other once more, with words, with gestures, with patience. They learned to water love as if it were a fragile plant, with consistency, care, and faith. The divorce was not signed. The papers stayed on the kitchen table for a few weeks, until Sophia herself tore them up on an ordinary afternoon while Daniel was teaching Olivia to ride a bike without training wheels in the small front yard. From there she could hear the laughter of the two of them. Daniel ran holding the bike, promising not to let go but releasing it for brief moments when Olivia found her balance. The little girl shouted, "Don't let go, Daddy!" And he replied, "I'm here, Princess. I won't let you fall." Sophia smiled, tearing the papers into small pieces. Perhaps that phrase was all either of them needed to hear. "I'm here. I won't let you fall." Life didn't go back to how it was. It returned to being life, with its flaws, new beginnings, and small miracles, with bills to pay, sleepless nights when Olivia was sick, moments of disagreement. But now, there was also a newfound awareness. That love was not just a feeling, but a daily decision to stay, to nurture, to cherish. 3 months later, Daniel came home with a small envelope. Inside, 2 tickets to a beach resort. "My parents stay with Olivia," he said, his eyes shining in a way Sophia hadn't seen in a long time. "I think we deserve a second honeymoon." Sophia couldn't hold back the tears, not because the gift was extravagant. It wasn't. They were still on a tight budget. But because he had remembered. Remembered that she always said her favourite place was the beach. Remembered that they promised to travel more but never did. And Olivia's note, even with its torn edges and finger marks, got framed. It hung on the hallway wall between their daughter's drawings, and an old photo of the two of them smiling at their wedding. A reminder that sometimes, to save what matters, it is enough to remember what made us love in the first place, and to learn every day to love again. One Saturday afternoon, almost a year later, while Olivia played in the backyard, Daniel found Sophia in the kitchen, pensively looking at the family photo on the fridge. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, hugging her from behind. "About how we almost lost all of this," she replied, leaning back against him. "About how our daughter saved us with a simple note." Daniel kissed her neck softly. "Maybe it wasn't the note," he murmured. "Maybe we just gave ourselves permission to remember." Love doesn't disappear all at once. It falls asleep, falls silent, hides behind routine and unspoken resentments. Sometimes what seems like the end is just a cry for help. Relationships don't sustain themselves. They need to be cared for, remembered, nurtured with patience, empathy, and a daily choice. Loving isn't about never making mistakes. It's about deciding to start over even when everything seems lost. And often, what reminds us of this is the simple gaze of a child who sees with the heart what adults have forgotten to see. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.